Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February the 17th, 2025. It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting to order.
Troy Lemire.
Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
William Hester.
Cheryl Heffernan McGlynn.
William Pozo.
Selectman Bishop is excused. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, agenda review.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, under unfinished business, Form Charter Revision Commission, I throw it out to the board. One item that I didn't realize that we should talk about is a recording secretary. If the board feels that Form Charter Revision encompasses the record secretary, then I won't need it added. Or I do believe we do want to talk about the recording secretary. It is an item we haven't talked about in the past. I did look to see what happened last time we called charter revision. I just didn't want to run a foul as we go through this charter revision. So I'll leave it up to the board if they feel that the agenda item Form Charter Revision Commission does encompass a recording secretary, or we can add it under a subsection of Form Charter Revision.
I think we can make it part of the item.
I believe we should do.
All right, so do we have a motion to add it?
So moved.
Do we have to add it, Todd, if we're just gonna do it underneath that?
Before adding it to the agenda.
Well, we're gonna have Form Charter Revision Commission. Is it not just part of that is the question? He said you could do it, you could add it, or you could do it as part of that.
I just didn't want to go, because I will bring it up, and I didn't want to go down the avenue and at least not let the.
If you wanna make it a second item, then it's up to you.
Here we have a motion, so let's
Okay.
just carry it.
Second.
Troy seconds. All in favor?
Thank you.
Item 4, approval of the minutes of the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting on February the 2nd, 2026.
So moved.
Second. Okay.
It's okay. Thank you, Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Cheryl. Any discussion, corrections, additions, subtractions? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous. Item 5, the Board of Selectmen welcomes public comment. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less, may speak once. Please remember that this is an opportunity to make a statement, and it's not meant to be a back and forth discussion between the citizen and the Board of Selectmen. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and give you a name and address. Who would like to speak? Come turn the mic on so we can hear you.
I don't know if it's the right time.
Okay. Turn it on the same mic.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, hit your mic, the little button.
Another one, we had it.
Thank you, sir. For your record. Pass them on. You have enough? I have more.
Yeah, we need 2 more.
Basically what you get, this is what the grants, what we've received in town from 2012 through 2022, I believe it says here. Those are the audited dates, years that we have. This is what the commissioner has provided. So to start off, education's a big topic. All across the state. Today happened to be Education Day in Hartford. There's actually 342 people testifying right now. They're on number 98. They'll probably be there for wee hours in the morning. I know Superintendent Luby is number 289. So yeah, today I was in Hartford and I brought in, asked our chairman of education to come in. Commissioner testified at 10 o'clock this morning, and she offered herself up to come to my office and speak on town of Winchester. Some interesting things came out, and I just want to be transparent in what it does. I wanted somebody to be there that's on the board. It's all about money. Commissioner is more than willing, as Kurt will probably inform his board, to work with us. She does have some things that she's asked for. One is an agreement with a high school that she's asked for, and she told that to him today. The interesting thing is, we talk about the town of Winchester being a alliance district, and that's a big topic. If we pull out of the alliance district, the commissioner went and did some numbers before she came to the office today, and they put us into the regular realm where everybody else is. There's 33 districts in alliance district. We end up losing $980,000 with the way the calculation is right now. If we are not, we are protected. She wants us protected because she knows that we will go down significantly. They want to reconfigure that. They're trying to do something. This is what everybody's testifying on today. It's our kids. We've talked about everything on what she could do, what she can do to help us. She wants to help us. She's been here. She's the commissioner. Kathy Dempsey was the chief financial officer. She's now moved to OPM, where they finance education out of the governor's office. So we have two people that were here during our receivership, now working at two very high posts in there. So we had the commissioner, her new CFO, and her chief of staff in my office today. We were there for probably half hour, 40 minutes. Good conversations. We left there and we went over to the governor's office. We met with his chief policy staff, who has asked a few things of Chairman Warner to come back so she can have their policy and financial people review. They want to help and work with us. It's not a definite that money's going to come. I thought it was interesting that if we do lose the Alliance District, that our monies go down to $980,000, $1 million. But this, what we did here, and she's very key on this. The Commissioners Network was big. That's something she put forward that I worked with her on. Almost $6 million over 5 years. She told us, and I remember having conversations with Melanie, the previous superintendent, you have to have an exit strategy. After that $6 million was up, you have to have a plan. So if you look through here, this is $18 million that's above any line item in our budget as far as the town of Winchester. This is grants. The state has kicked in $18.5 million since 2012 to 22. 17, I'm sorry, to 22. So they're working to help. They understand. When kids leave our elementary school and go to Gilbert, or go to our high school, I'll try to say, they don't have that extra help that the Commissioners Network gave for those students. Students are changing, they need more help. We need to find a way to get more help all the way through K through 12. How that works, I don't know. She was very open, she's willing to work. I asked her, says, would you help come? She says, after the legislative session, I'll come with myself and my team, and we'll see what we can do. They want to help. It's not just write a check. And Chairman Warner heard this directly to him. I sort of let her lead the conversation. They know that letters are coming. Thousands of letters are coming to their office, to the governor's office. The commissioner knows this. We had the opportunity, we stated our case, as I do every year with the commissioner. We talk quite often. It's money. Every town has this. Interesting fact, I mean, Norwich Free Academy, which the chief of staff for education went there. Norwich Free Academy, Norwich is an alliance district. Same situation as we're in. A little bit different as far as their commitment to their school, but they're struggling. It's all about the dollar. And we need to find a way in the state. Everybody says we have $4 billion. We do. That's your tax dollars. We have to get that back to you. This is one way to do it. The governor has cut, his budget is right here compared to last year's. I mean, $12 million cut out of magnet schools and put to free lunch or free breakfast across the state. There's a bunch of cuts in here that people are fighting tonight. This is his proposal. This is not the legislature's proposal. This is his thoughts. Now we go through and we pick this apart. The Appropriations Committee does, and then those things go forward. Commissioner says, the more mandates you give me, the harder it is for me to fund schools. Last year there were something like 60 mandates that came out of the legislature. That goes right to your local boards. That's right. They're not funded. They get it. I thank the commissioner for taking the time today. It was great. And then senior policy people over in the governor's office, they were willing, they met with us this morning also. you know, and they've opened up their arms to bring some information back to their finance people. Remember, there's three branches of government. It's the legislature, the executive branch. We met with 2 of those today. Hopefully, we don't have to get to the judicial branch, because that's not cool. But, so they're 2 different people. We try to work with the commissioner on the legislative side, and then we work with the executive branch on some more money side. I just want to tell you what's going on. It's when you have that number of people signing up to speak on the first public hearing of the year, there's some trouble out there. We have the superintendent here and the principal of explorations both testifying tonight. So those are the only ones I saw in here from Winsted, but we let our voice be heard.
Thank you very much.
I do believe Selectman Bishop also testified today.
Today? I searched, I was looking for him. He didn't start till, that didn't start till 3 o'clock. I didn't see it on here, so
maybe it's something,
I tried
that's
to look
what
for
his
it.
intention was doing. And he also sat and met a couple days ago with various leaders as well, went up there. So I think it's great that everyone's pitching in from every branch to try to have the meetings and get our voices being heard.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's been heard. I've been talking. Commissioner, you know, it's not every day a commissioner says, come on in. And she's done it for me many times. I had Superintendent Luby on a Zoom call because it's easier for her to be in district, and that was probably 6 months ago. We have to have that communication. You can't ask for anything more where a commissioner, sitting commissioner, actually worked in our district for 2 years and put the money forward. So let's try to keep the communication up. I'll let you know if anything changes on that end, but the ECS money is difficult. I don't know where we get it. She wants to know, the governor's office wants to know more about why insurances is going up. They're hearing it from every municipality. That's one thing we got out of the governor's office today, that everybody's calling them saying that insurance premiums are skyrocketing. So we're gonna try to get some analysis together, high-level stuff, so that they can go and they can look at it and they can dig in. But that's something that we're just gonna keep going and try to see if we can get more money. So we worked on a couple more projects too, Paul, while we were in that office.
And Town Manager Harrington knows why some of our premiums have gone up.
If I may, Board, to just put this to our representative. So one of the issues that I've had in all the years of municipal government is the process is always too late at the state. Any word you're hearing of when decisions potentially could be made. You know, my budget is due to this crew on March 15th, which is a Sunday, which means they'll get it on March 13th. We start vetting this, and the problem is we're off to referendum in May. You guys are still in session. We may not have a final number until after our first budget vote.
You won't have a final number until the first Wednesday in May.
So I appreciate the honesty.
We get it at 4 o'clock in the morning, the night before we have to vote on it. We won't even have any town runs. I do have the governor's towns runs that I can forward you. I'm sure you have them. The
yep.
spreadsheet is a
Yeah, they
million
have
miles
them as
long.
well.
But that's the governor's. I mean, everybody wants a change with ECS, but that final number doesn't come till, we get it, we have to have it 12 hours before we can vote on it. And it comes to us, everybody's waiting with bated breath for the budget, probably around 4:30 in the morning, the night before. So that's the last document that we really have to get done. And it usually comes, believe it or not, if you read it, it's not a bill, it's an emergency certified. Why is that? No changes can be made.
Can I ask you a question? In talking about the ECS, was there a discussion with the Commissioner about why we get less, or how the calculation's done, we get less because we have an endowed academy as our high school? And that doesn't just impact us, it impacts other schools like that. So the fact that we are still providing and paying for those students is not factored into the calculation because of the endowed academy status.
And that question was raised, and her finance staff is going back to relook that. They didn't think it was that big of an impact financially, but they'll look at the equation and how it's figured. But she did say, you might be able to get a little more money, but you got a huge building you gotta support now, if it's your own building. So, and she's saying you have to come out and look at, you know, I think it's minimum 22 acres. You gotta build a school, it's probably minimum 100 million, 120 million.
I guess I wasn't
So-
talking about that issue, I was talking specifically, is there any way to have the calculation done differently so that we're not penalized for having a endowed academy that we pay 99% of the cost for? Because we don't, that's not factored in to the calculation, so we're kind of feeling like we're cheating.
And I agree with you, and that conversation did come up today, and her finance staff is going back and looking at that, and I think that's one of the things why you see in that document over $18 million of grants. She's trying to back that with other things that are coming into us. And that's where she saw the deficit when she was here, and that's why the $1.5 million for the first few years for commissioners, that she needed to build the district back up. But none of that money went to the high school. That was just here for K through 6. So yes, that is being looked at, because they're gonna look at Norwich and they're gonna look at Woodstock and see how theirs is done, and to see if there's any discrepancy there. That's something we brought up, because you shouldn't be penalized for having that type of a school district. We agree. But then she also, she's very intrigued, and in the governor's office too, is, we have another high school on town property, but we can't access that because that is a regional high school. We are not a regional town. And if he wants to change it to a regional town, there's a lot of things that change for the town of Winchester that would have to come into place, and that's a big feat to do. So that is something that was asked, and her new finance staff is looking at that. They weren't sure it was gonna make a huge difference, but I asked that because the calculation, when you pull out of the Alliance District, why does it drop so low? That's also the question. Why does it drop down $980,000 in the negative? That's scary.
It is, but fortunately, once we're in the Alliance District, we get to stay in unless they change the legislation. But, so we're in there, that's not really the concern. The concern is on the ECS and why we're not being counted appropriately. And I don't care if Commissioner Wilson's not gonna make that big a deal. I can tell you, everyone at this table would say $5,000 can make a big deal. This is important. Any extra amount we can get is going to help hold
And
on to
also-
a teacher, hold on to a program or something.
And also, to your point too, is to try to get how that ECS equation is done. It's such a large equation to try to figure. It's not just, it goes on demographics, it goes on students, it goes on so many different things, but how they calculate it for all students, that's what they're trying to figure out. So
They don't include the Gilbert students in our calculation, even though we pay for them.
I don't think that's 100% accurate, but I will get that answer, because part of that $8 million is for all students. So that money is for all students. They don't just cut all students out of that calculation of $8 million, because it wouldn't be just $8 million to run Winchester. So that goes for all students throughout. So we will get that answer. That was one that was asked. It is only unique to 3. She says, please go back and look at the old Lyme agreement. That agreement also has some things in it for the type of school district that we have, but we are unique to those 3. So hopefully we'll get that rather quickly, and if I don't get it by the end of the week, I will text her and ask her. But that was brought up, so.
Jay, we're the only ones that don't have the agreement with our
I
high
don't know
school at the
that for
moment.
sure. The others, I know Norwich has something to that extent. I don't know what it is, but they also have some projects that were done, because you have to have a memorandum of agreement in order to file for the state, and the commissioner agrees that that has been done. And if you want to do projects, and then if you do one, it's 10 years before, the financial responsibility is for the district that took that money to fulfill it, or as in any project, it's a payback.
The
So,
clawback period is 10 years for completion, for the last payment.
after final completion.
Yeah.
We have the memorandum, we just don't have the final agreement, and we've been,
And the memorandum allows them to legally, I don't know if I said we're legal, but allows her to understand that there's an agreement so they can apply. They are starting to apply for stuff. She will keep watching that and seeing what's going on. She knows that we're looking for dollars, whether it's on this side or on that side. She gave me some avenues to go talk about the roof. Our previous CFO for Department of Ed is at OPM now. I might be able to go over there and see if we can get something else out of that. But that's something that needs to get done. You throw that into a building, it's a lot of money. And I expressed this to her because she says, Jay, every district is having this issue, funding the students. And our students today, some of them require a lot more. And we need to be able to fund that. Every student deserves a proper education. And how do we get there? Special education is a huge issue. We tried to fund it fully last year, $130 million, I believe it was, needed to fulfill it. We only got 80 million in the budget. The rest went to the towns. You know, if they pull the $12 million out of magnet schools that's in the governor's budget, that's a tuition for people going to magnet schools that the towns are gonna have to pay, because he cut their budget by $12 million. Every time you cut something, there's a cost to a district. I don't know how many we have to magnet schools in this town, but we pay tuition. The other thing she's very highly talking about is bringing out-of-district people back into the town. Finding programs that she can help build so that the out-of-districts come here. Our K through 6, I believe, has about $1.2 million in costs, and our high school has a little over $1 million in costs for out-of-districts. If everybody can find a way to bring those back into the community, and that doesn't include transportation. She gets it. I just want to say we're at discussions. If she could come out here now, she would, but budget session, she's a little crazy. But I just wanted to keep you informed. We will get that. You know, you have my number, you can reach out, and we'll see what we can get for that.
Thank you, sir.
Right?
Thanks, Jay.
Keep in touch, and as they go, I'll just keep coming forward for you.
Oh, just hit the button so the microphone is on. There you go.
Okay. John Herman. I've come to just speak in regard to my application for the charter review. This is the right time to do this, gentlemen, ladies? Okay. Well, you know, I like to help the town, you know, where I can to make a contribution. I think some of us on this board, you know, Todd and Troy, Glenn, you've seen me in the tax appeal situation to attempt to bring out people's thinking, their feelings, you know, not to leave anybody feeling unheard completely. And I try to nurture that out and have them express, you know, in the end, attempt to find what is the fairest thing, okay? And I think you've seen me do that, and you can make a judgment on that. I'm not affiliated with any political party, so I don't have any agenda to follow. You know, I would be deciding issues, contributing to the decisions of those issues on their merits and what's the greater good for the town. If I have any kind of helpful qualifications, you know, I have over the past 20 years presided over ethics, arbitration, and mediations for the Hartford Board of Realtors. So those are formal hearings with, you know, 2 lawyers, secretaries, testimony. It's run like a courtroom, and it's I've presided over those hearings for 20 years, and that's another opportunity to you know, let people be heard. Make sure you've considered all sides of an issue. It's something you learn to do over time, and maybe I have some skills with that that I can contribute. So the other thing, there's been some talk, some consideration, I understand, of whether it's a conflict of interest to be part of this effort, seeing as I'm also chairman of Tax Appeal. And I would just like to point out that I have a small real estate company. It's a modest little firm. Mainly I've represented buyers only for 30 years, and now I do both listings and buyers. But what I have done consistently is, we are the only company in the state of Connecticut that is in this particular situation where I've done transactions in over 100 towns in Connecticut, but I've never represented both sides simultaneously. The company was conceived to avoid conflict of interest. So I have lived and breathed and walked avoiding conflict of interest for 30 years. There's literally no other firm in the state that can say that they've done transactions in 100 towns and never represented both sides. It's a singular minor accomplishment. But I do walk a high ethical road, and that's what I will bring to any issue that is considered. Fair play, contribution in the best interest of the town and the townspeople. And I think that's about it. Questions? Good. All right, very good.
Thanks, Jack.
Click the microphone off.
All right, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Where's the competition? Where's everybody else?
They're just in writing.
All right.
Item number 6, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, board. This will be a fairly quick town manager's report, because most of my hours are spent putting the budget together, but really quickly, a couple items I wanted to bring to your attention. First one is the automatic speed enforcement proposal has been submitted to the DOT. Our consultant at SiteStream reported that DOT conducted the initial cursory review within 24 hours of submission. An exceptionally quick turnaround, one that they've never seen before. That might have something to do with me sending out some emails and texts that we were submitting the report. There are a couple things that they've come back with on their cursory review that myself and SiteStream were working on it, but we hope to get the approval in the not-so-distant future and obviously eventually get these cameras up and running. Moving on, Northwest Council of Governments, also known as the COG, we recently met and it was more or less a routine meeting, but the mayor and I expressed concerns that the prioritization of MSW at the time may not represent the most strategic use of regional resources. We emphasized that municipalities are facing more pressing and immediate challenges, including compliance with MS4, stormwater mandates, planning for the implementation and long-term impacts of newly enacted housing requirements, and coordinating regional strategies to respond to the evolving land use and zoning laws over the next 5 years. We're advocating for focusing on, excuse me, strategic planning and regulatory preparedness to ensure communities are positioned to respond effectively to significantly policy changes coming from the state of Connecticut. On a lighter note, Restaurant Week. If you all remember last year, we had Restaurant Week. Restaurant Week is going to kick off on March 4th. Put it in your calendar. We are all going to show up at Little Red Barn for a culinary offering within our community. A bunch of restaurants have signed up. They're bringing in their culinary items for the townspeople to sample. It was such a huge success last week, our inaugural Restaurant Week. We're doing it again, kicking off on March 4th. But really the highlights, the strength and diversity of our local restaurant community, the continued momentum within Winstead's small business sector, and the opportunity to attract visitors to support our local economy. So again, please, March 4th, I believe it starts at 5 p.m. at Little Red Barn. Come get some sampling of foods, and then let's kick off Restaurant Week like we had last year. Wallens Hill, just a quick update. We did receive the 3 proposals. I just want to let you know where exactly we're at. I have tasked Goman and York out of Hartford, Connecticut. They currently have all 3 of the proposals. They are doing a overall impact, a fiscal impact, and a school impact. That's going to take them roughly 30 days, so we will have experts that are, town planners that do this stuff every single day to give us a 30,000 feet unbiased view of each one of their proposals on their own, to really tell us what the fiscal impact is, potentially the school impact is, and the overall impact on the town. So once we get that, I do plan on bringing you all into executive session, showing the 3 proposals, but also providing the report. So as you review the proposals, you can see what Goman and York thinks of each particular of those proposals as well. As I stated earlier on, as I started, budget development is well underway. I've been meeting with department heads, identifying efficiencies as much as we possibly can. In fact, you'll see some tonight on some bid waivers that I'm looking to see if you all would grant. Honestly, if we put together all of what the department heads were asking, it would just be completely untenable. I think we plugged in all the numbers. It was well over 18-19% tax increase. We're way underneath that after several budget meetings. But we'll get it to you. My goal is to have it to you. March 13th, you'll have your big budget packet. If you remember last year, I think we ended up supplying a 12-page report that walks you through the budget. If you thought that one was long, Unfortunately, I think this one's gonna be a little bit longer this year. I think it just tells the story. You can look at, obviously, you know, the thousands of pages that are in the binder, but I think the story, the narrative of, you know, how we got to the budget and areas that you may wanna dial in on to say, okay, why are we doing it this way? So that'll be included with the packet as well. As you got the email on Friday afternoon, our audit is complete. It is filed with OPM. We have this, the single audit for the state and the federal and the ACFR, which is about 110 pages, which gives you the overall financial recap of the town. I wanted to put this on the agenda for one reason and one reason only. I have to thank Anne Marie and our exceptional finance department for their diligence and professionalism in completing the work of getting this audit done. I know towns are still struggling to get their audit done, but simply unbelievable work by our finance team to get that audit completed. If you haven't seen on the website, we did submit for a new payroll system. This was funded years and years ago. One of the issues is that the Board of Ed was on our tax ID number. The Board of Ed is now under their own tax ID number. So they can go on their own payroll and the town can go on our own payroll. So we're gonna go to an automated payroll system. Believe it or not, and what that really means in simplicity forms is I have money taken out of my check every 2 weeks to my HSA contribution. We physically are mailing a check to Fidelity, and that's for each one of our employees. So we're gonna go automated, and exciting that, you know, years ago the town had the brain trust to put this together and fund it. We just couldn't do it because the Board of Ed was hanging out under our tax ID number. Sat down with Julie, she completely was in agreement. We worked through, we said January 1st, you'd cut off into your new EIN number. They're on their own EIN number, so we're off to the next item. CCM conference and state aid. Unfortunately, I did not attend the conference because it's budget season, but the position that ECS believes is increased ECS funding and broader municipal aid are necessary to address the growing imbalances between local cost and state support. Continued reliance on local property taxpayers to absorb rising expenses is unsustainable, particularly at the state maintains significant budget surpluses. We talk about that every week, every 2 weeks. And then lastly, I do want to let you all know that I followed up with the letter that you all approved with a letter from the town manager urging the governor to supply more state aid to the town of Winchester. And last but not least, if you have any summer projects or spring projects on the horizon, please submit your building permits so we can get them turned around right away. With that, I'll open it to questions.
Any questions from the board? I think I saw in one of the flyers, the tickets or registrations required for that Little Red Barn event.
In fact, I was just over at the EDC meeting tonight. I had asked for any marketing material they have on that, to be continued, but I can tell you probably by 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, it'll be posted on our social media pages and website. You may be accurate with that.
There's registration.
There is registration.
They want a head count.
Okay, so.
So if you're interested, make sure.
If you're interested, make sure you register, but I'll supply the link tomorrow when I get it all from EDC. And again, it'll be on our website and our social media channels as well.
Where was the one last week?
He said last week.
He said last week, you meant
year.
last
I know
year.
that.
Oh,
I had to just-
Sorry.
Thought I missed something.
Any other questions?
So did I don't miss free meals.
Moving on to item 6. Item 7, Finance Director's Report.
As stated before the meeting began, Emery's taking a well-deserved little break from municipal government, so I will be doing the finance report. And we did include the little cheat sheet with you, but for the general public watching at home or later on, current property taxes collected is $27,575,654, which is 94.47% of the budget, which is stellar. Compared to prior year of $25,884,620. Motor vehicle supplemental, keeping in mind those bills just went out in January with a due date of February 1st. $187,663, which is 53.62% of the budget, compared to last year of $192,733, 85.66% of the budget. Past due taxes, $252,050, which is 72.01% of the budget, compared to $235,260 last year, which was 39.21%. Total revenues being $34,002,536, which is 82.9% of the total revenue we're expected this year, compared to last year, $31,836,736, which was 78.02%. Expenditures coming in at $25,027,353, 61% of the budget compared to last year of $23,527,681, which was 57.66% of the budget. So far, and I put this on the report for a reason, we talked about the $8 million number for ECS that we roughly get from the state of Connecticut. So far, as of January 31st, the town has only received $1.9 million of that ECS money. So there's a whole lot of money that's due to us from the state of Connecticut over the next 6 months. Moving on, cash flow right now in our general fund, $28,513,446, which $19,065,277 is invested. $458,576 is in the Northwest Community Bank suite. $2,622,426 is in the STIF account, and Northwest Community Bank Money Market has $15,984,275. Moving on to capitals, obviously it's winter time right now, so not a lot of capital stuff going on, but as we did in I think the January meeting, the annual police vehicle replacement, which we funded from the police revolving account, $66,127. Retaining wall for East Wakefield, work was done, but the invoice finally came in, $13,500. Price Road Mill and Paving, $1,899. The Wani Road bill came in, $473,527, which was paid for out of the bond. West Wakefield Boulevard drainage, $54,814 out of the bond, and more drainage out of the bond as well. And then $5,000 for Holland Beach parking lot improvement and $3,500 for the senior center mechanical repairs. With that, if there are any questions on the finance report.
Just one quick question, Paul. That 66,000 we spent on the cruiser that comes in from the police revolving fund?
Yep.
Does that show in the revenues anywhere? Is that lumped into any one of these revenue sources, or that essentially, because that was paid for outside of the budget?
It was paid for outside of the budget, so what we do is we do a transfer from the police revolving account into the police vehicle annual, or the annual police vehicle replacement capital account. So we pay for it out of a capital account, not directly out of the police revolving account. It's just an accounting thing. So we take the money, move it over into a capital account and pay for it out of a capital item.
So it's much like the way we handle the bond. The bond comes in and goes out somewhere.
Pretty much.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Other questions? Thank you very much. Item 8, correspondence. Does anyone have anything? Item 9, boards and commissions. Bill, it's all you tonight.
We have one nomination appointment, Lynn Skokin, Historic Commission, Party Democrat, seated member, term end date 12/20/31.
12/31 is the correct one.
Yeah, that's correct.
So is that a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Bill, was that a yes?
Yeah.
Unanimous.
I'd just like to say for, those that are watching from home, that we do have a lot of seats available on a number of boards, if anyone's interested. Looks like we need Ad hoc Water Committee, Architectural Review Committee, Conservation Commission, Cultural District Commission, Economic Development Commission, Ethics Commission, Historic Commission still, Inland Wetlands, Laurel City Commission, Recreation Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals. If anyone out there is interested in contributing, please reach out to us. We'd like to have you join the town and help it grow.
If I could just add to that, what I'll do, if the board doesn't have an issue with it, is tomorrow I'll get some stuff up on our website and our social media listing these availability. And I'll also note that this board, at a recent meeting, did change the process. You will be seated very, very quickly.
Yes.
So it's not one of those, I'll put my name in, wait 6 weeks. It's put your name in and you're probably gonna be at a meeting later on that week. So, we're moving much quickly on the nominations and appointments. So I'll get a list up. I know we read it really quickly tonight, but I'll get the list up for you all to see, and hopefully you can join us and the water's warm.
Moving on to item 10, unfinished business. Item A, form the Charter Revision Commission. Do we have a motion to form the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I've had an opportunity, as you know, we shut down the application process last Friday. I did get a chance to speak with several of the applicants, not all, but several. And I think I'd like to put the motion forward and then we can have discussion. And it's a long motion, so bear with me.
If I may, just before you start, when I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to look over the motion. You see that item 1 is charge of the commission. These were the items that we originally talked about. It was the town clerk, it was the 4-year terms for the Board of Selectmen, it was the limitation of concurrent service of multiple boards, and the budget adoption process. Is there any other items that you wish to task? Because this is going to become an official document that we're tasking the Charter Revision Commission. Yes, they can go off in other areas, but these are items that the Board of Selectmen are defining that they want the Charter Revision Commission to look at. These were just the items that have been mentioned at meetings. Before you made a motion, I wanted to just bring that up to see if there was any other charges that this board would want to see the Charter Revision.
Well, I think the charge should be clear that they are not limited to the areas that were highlighted. And that's not clear from what I read, when I read this. It was like, you can look at this, this, and this, and I don't think that's appropriate. I think the language needs to be changed to allow them, to clarify that these are areas that the Board of Selectmen have suggested. However, the commission charge is for them to review all the ordinances.
The charter The charter actually does cover that. And as part of the revision commission in the charter, it says that this commission has the ability to do what they want. They're not just directed to these 4. So in the first part of the motion, it says pursuant to the general statutes as well as the Winchester Town Charter. So that language is already in the charter.
Well, it says, okay, so, in other words, yes, however, but then in accordance with the statute and the charter is charged with examining and studying regarding the following proposed areas. I think it's got to be made very clear that they can go outside of the proposals.
May I offer a suggestion? Maybe we do an E or any other items, any other revisions that the commission sees fit or recommends.
That's exactly what I was suggesting.
Again, I just, when I was looking at and studying forming charter revision, it clearly states that the board wants to charge them with what they see. You're 100% right. They are free to go out, and I should have stated that in E, and I think now this is why I didn't want the motion made. I think that's why you go with E and say, or any other.
Recommendations by the Charter Commission to the Board of Selectmen.
Any other proposed areas?
I would say any item that the commission would like to address.
I would
Any
say,
other items?
I would say, and any other proposed areas of revision the Charter Commission itself feels is appropriate. Determines is appropriate. What?
To recommend to the Board of Selectmen.
Recommend to the board.
Because at the end of the day, when they turn in their
I'm getting
report,
it.
we can accept it or just tell them thanks
Right.
for your 18 months.
Well, and then the other thing as you're going, and I do want to thank former Selectwoman Perez for the guideline that she provided with her application. I believe you all had an opportunity to read that. We do have the timeline. I'm no pride in ownership. I stole it from Selectwoman Perez because I loved her timeline. That we're tasking the Charter Revision Commission that they have to hold their first meeting on or before February 25th. Obviously the 2 public meetings and stuff like that, but they are due back a final report to the town clerk no later than June 15th.
So no 18 months.
No 18, that's
Lot less.
why I chimed in on that.
Yep.
With this, and you can look at the election intent is November 3rd, so the voter participation threshold is not gonna be applicable. We're gonna go through this document, but I wanted to spell out everything that's in that document and making sure that the board, I went with a lot of assumptions, just based on the meetings we've held about it, but is the board good with, first, the mayor has to actually call the first meeting. Okay, so that's the first thing we gotta make sure the mayor's good to do on or before February 25th, then having everything done to us or to the town clerk by June 15th, and then we start checking boxes once we get the final report, because then we have to hold a public hearing. So you all can hear from the public if these items are, you know, something you want to move forward with or not. But this thing hopefully will appear on the ballot on November 3rd, so.
Okay, I've made that change. It'll be item E. Any other changes to this before I move forward?
I have none. I do want to talk recording secretary, but.
That's going to be
Yeah, we can talk about
the
that.
next section.
Yeah.
Okay. So I move that pursuant to Section 7-188 of the Connecticut General Statutes and the Winchester Town Charter, the Board of Selectmen hereby establishes a Charter Revision Committee for the purpose of reviewing and proposing amendments to the Winchester Town Charter. Item 1, charge of the commission. In accordance with the Connecticut General Statute 7-188 through 7-191, the Charter Revision Commission is charged with examining, studying, and making recommendations regarding the following proposed areas of revision. A, town clerk, transition from elected to appointed position. To review and propose amendments consistent with Connecticut General Statute 7-141C 2 and 7-193 to convert the town clerk from an elected office to an appointed administrative position under the authority of the town manager, subject to confirmation by the Board of Selectmen, including repeal of election language, establishment of appointment and qualification standards, definition of reporting structure and employment conditions, and appropriate transitional provisions. B, 4-year terms for the Board of Selectmen. To review and propose amendments extending the term of office for members of the Board of Selectmen from 2 years to 4 years, as authorized under Connecticut General Statute 7-193A2, including implementation timing, possible staggered terms to ensure continuity of governance, and transitional language necessary for orderly implementation. C, limitation on concurrent service on multiple boards. To review and propose amendments consistent with municipal authority under Connecticut General Statute 7-148 and 7-193, prohibiting individuals from serving simultaneously as voting members on more than one permanent board, commission, authority, or regulatory body, including appropriate exemptions, definitions of permanent versus advisory bodies, and transitional provisions for current members. D, budget adoption process reform. To review and propose amendments modernizing and streamlining the town's budget process pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-148 and 7-344, including earlier submission deadlines for the proposed annual budget, earlier scheduling of public hearings and referenda, authorization of expedited subsequent referenda if a budget fails, and optimal interim funding provisions in the absence of an approved budget consistent with applicable law. E, any other item that the Charter Revision Commission would like to submit to the Board of Selectmen. The Commission may also recommend technical, conforming, or clarifying amendments necessary to ensure statutory compliance, internal consistency, and effective implementation of the above revisions as permitted under Connecticut General Statute 7-188B. 2, composition. The Charter Revision Commission shall consist of 7 members appointed in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 7-188 as follows. 5 electors, residents of the town of Winchester. The following candidates: Candy Perez, Holly Cassaday, Sandra Strubar, Louisa Martinez, and Mark Lampanana. 2 members of the Board of Selectmen to serve as facilitators. These would be Selectman Kevin Bishop and Selectman Paul Marino. The Board of Selectmen facilitators shall participate in discussions and serve as communication conduits between the Commission and the Board, but shall not vote unless otherwise required by law. 3, timeline and deadlines. The Charter Revision Commission shall proceed in accordance with the procedural requirements and statutory timelines set forth in Connecticut General Statute 7-188 through 7-191, including: the mayor shall call the first meeting of the commission, at which time the formal charge shall be delivered. 2, the commission shall hold its first meeting on or about February 25th, 2026, for the purpose of electing a chair and establishing a regular meeting schedule. 3, the commission shall conduct 2 public hearings as required by Connecticut General Statute 7-191A. 1 public hearing prior to substantive work, drafting work, and 1 public hearing following preparation of a draft report, but prior to submission to the town clerk. 4, the commission shall submit its final report to the town clerk no later than June 15th, 2026, for transmittal to the Board of Selectmen pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-191B. Upon receipt of the final report, the Board of Selectmen shall hold a public hearing as required by Connecticut General Statute 7-191B, act within the timeframes prescribed by Connecticut General Statute 7-191C, and submit any approved charter revisions to the electors in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 7-191D. 4, election intent. It is the intent of the Board of Selectmen that any proposed charter revisions be submitted to the electors at the November 3rd, 2026 general election pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-191D1, in order to avoid the voter participation threshold applicable to special elections under Connecticut General Statute 7-191D2.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Some discussion. Can we give me the list of the 5 electors that were named?
I missed one.
Yeah.
They are Candy Perez, Holly Cassaday, Sandra Strubar, Louisa Martinez, and Mark Lampanana.
And can I ask how these people were chosen?
They were chosen after speaking with most of them, and they were chosen, I made the motion.
Okay, so you've chosen them. So was there any discussion with any other members of the board in regards to who would be named in your motion?
Yes,
And who was that?
they were discussed among the members of our caucus.
Okay, so there was no outreach to the members of my caucus, because I know I wasn't spoken to.
I spoke to Selectman Bishop about serving with him on this commission, but we've not spoken about the other members.
Is there any reason why no members of your caucus wanted to speak to me about my thoughts on this?
No particular reason. This is time for discussion now.
So you've named 3 Republicans, 1 Democrat, and 1 unaffiliated, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and I would ask that we have, that Holly Cassidy be replaced with Bill Hudak. He is not a member of the DTC, and he's not the president of the DTC, so he's not disqualified, and he would be very good for the commission. And I think it would be fair to have input from the Democrats on this party, on this group, as to who should be on the commission, and not just have it be one-sided.
Well,
So I'd make a motion to amend. Well, there's 2 things. I also need to amend your motion and ask if you'd entertain an amendment to your motion. When you read the initial part, you referred to it as a Charter Revision Committee, and it should be the Charter Revision Commission. I'd also like to point out that when you're citing statutes, the symbol means section. And if you have 2 of those symbols before the number, it's sections. So it's not General Statutes 7-18, sections 7-188 through 7-191. And I think for purposes of doing this right, we can assume it for now, but in the future it would be right to cite statutes correctly, because it just makes things look like we know what we're doing. And Mr. Bishop and I had spoken about me serving as the Democratic representative from this board on this commission, not him.
he told me just the opposite.
Okay.
He
When-
told me, quote, that you didn't have time and that he would be the one serving for the Democrats on this commission.
And I don't know when you spoke with him last. I know when I spoke with him last, and I will be putting my name forward to sit on the commission as the representative from this body as on the Democratic side. I'd also, again, make a motion to substitute.
I don't know that you can make a motion on top of a motion.
Yeah, there's
I
a
think the
motion
motion that's on the
So
floor
let's-
needs to be voted on, and if it
I'm
fails,
doing a
then you
motion
can
to
make
amend. I'm
amendments.
doing a motion to amend, which
Well,
I
he
can
can, he
do.
can rescind his motion, or he can't.
But I can do a motion to amend the motion that's on the table.
I'm not sure about that.
If I may, she can do a motion to amend while you're in discussion.
Can't amend a motion that's not been made.
Right.
So
Where it's gotta
that
be
is permitted
seconded.
under Robert's
So
rules.
the first motion to amend that I do is to correct the motion which referred to a Charter Revision Committee, as it should have said a Charter Revision Commission in the beginning of that. That'd be my first request to amend, and ask if the gentleman would agree to a
I
friendly
would
amendment in
absolutely-
that regard.
I would agree to amend the first paragraph where I said Charter Revision Committee to Charter Revision Commission.
Thank you. And I make a second motion to amend to put myself as the Democratic representative from the Board of Selectmen on the commission.
I would have no objection to that.
So I need a second on the question, motion to amend.
I will second that
Thank
for
you.
you.
Yep.
Was your second, just for point of clarification, on both the committee going to commission and,
Yes.
okay, so both have been seconded. Good. Checking boxes.
And then I make a motion to amend to put William Hudak on the commission in place of Holly Cassidy, so that there is appropriate Democratic representation on this commission.
That change, I'm not willing to change within my motion, so you'd have to get a second and vote on that one.
I seek a second on that motion. As far as discussion, I think it is really sad that this body wants to exclude as many Democrats as they can from participating in something such as this, that's this important.
I think actually when you look at the makeup of this board and what the town has said over the last 2 election cycles, they gave this board a supermajority. This board, or this commission now is made up of a majority as well as a representation from the Democratic Party and an unaffiliated. I think you actually have a good cross-section of people on this.
As you said to me on election night while we were waiting for the results, knowing full well that there was no contest to the Board of Selectmen because the numbers were running, that while comments and politicization was part of the elected process, that when we sat at the Board of Selectmen, that would not be the situation. But that appears to what it is, because otherwise it would have been a group discussion as to who to name and what the various merits of the individuals who applied were, not a party decision that excluded a member of this board, me in particular. And of course, Mr. Bishop wasn't discussed, it wasn't consulted regarding the other names as well. So I think that's a sad commentary. And I hope going forward with this board that we can try to work together as a group and not isolate the other side. It's not appropriate. We sit here on this board representing everyone in the town of Winsted, not just the people that voted for us. And for you to make a comment about the supermajority, the votes numbers weren't that significantly different. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. So the numbers weren't that group, it wasn't a landslide, so to speak. Yes, we put up the Democrats put up 2 members, you guys put up 5 more members, everyone who ran got elected. You can say, I don't think that says much, particular to this board.
I would counter that by saying, Cheryl, your party could have put up 5 candidates, they didn't. So beyond that,
Absolutely.
Beyond that, I think we have a good mix. We have an unaffiliated, we have a Democrat, and we have the majority. I would also say that it is my hope that we cannot deal with each other in partisan politics. And frankly, many of us who are saddened by your bi-monthly or however often you put out the quote from the desk of the Minority Report, where you've had no problem taking some swings at us during your public comments there. So unfortunately, there's a little bit of that from both sides, but we do want to work together, and I think this is a fair representation of this commission.
And just respond to that, there's been no swings. We've indicated what our position was, that was it. There's been no attacks, personal or otherwise, so this is what we feel and why. That's appropriate.
There's been a few, but that's fine.
Well, I'd be very interested in having you point those out, because I think, Selectman Bishop, I've been very careful just trying to give facts and
I think if you
information.
were trying to be all-encompassing, you would actually include all of us in this report, and we might address the public together. But instead, you two have decided to do it on your own.
I think the minutes are what addresses everyone together, and we've decided to put our position forward because that's significant to people to hear all the different sides.
Understood.
So, and you're welcome to put yours out. So, yeah, that's a totally different subject. I think you gentlemen coming together to unilaterally decide a commission of this nature was bad business, and it looks poor on you, in my opinion.
That is your
Mayor,
opinion.
can we move to the vote, please?
Before we move to vote, I'd like a recess to caucus. For 5 minutes.
Move that we recess?
Second. All in favor?
Troy, can you just turn the microphone off?
back from recess at 8:08.
So before we vote, Mr. Mayor, just to make sure we have the amendments correctly, we've changed the Charter Revision Committee to Charter Revision Commission in that first statement. We have changed the Board of Selectmen Facilitator from Selectman Bishop to Selectman Heffernan McGlynn,
Heffernan,
sorry,
sorry.
Heffernan
Okay.
McGlynn. We recognize that all the statutes were, had the section symbols as part of that. And I think that is all of the amendments to the motion.
Those are all the seconded amendments to the motion.
Yes.
So the 5 elector residents in the motion are Candy Perez, Holly Cassidy, Sandra Stuber, Louisa Martinez, and Mark Lampanana. With the Selectmen Facilitators, Selectman Marino, and Selectman Heffernan McLean. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? 5-1. We will reach out to commission members to establish a date to set the first meeting.
Mr. Mayor, if you want to provide me a date tomorrow or the next day, I will get a letter out officially letting them know of their appointment with a meeting that set to be scheduled for whatever date and time that you give me. So, before we move on to the next item, recording secretary.
Which is item B.
Which is item B. I wanted to bring this to the board's attention. We haven't talked about it in the past. I did look at the prior Charter Revision Commission when they met. The chair person at the time was also the recording secretary.
That is correct.
Herculean lift. Unsure where the commission's going to go in terms of that, but what I would suggest that if the board or if the commission so chooses to have a recording secretary, we should allow it. The mayor could let them know and we could fund it. There's more than enough money in the Selectmen Contingency Fund. But personal opinion, I truly believe chairing a Charter Revision Commission and doing the minutes and all of the other work is a Herculean effort. I would strongly suggest that this board maybe support bringing on a recording secretary. I'm sure we can find somebody, but I think it'll make things, better minutes, everything, and get things. But I just wanted to put that out. And also, if I was going to use the Selectmen Contingency account, make sure your approval was good with that as well.
So for clarity, this could be a town employee, or could it not be a town employer?
It could be a town employee. I
This
know.
person attends each one of the charter revision meetings.
Correct. Minutes do have to be filed in the clerk's office. There's reporting, obviously, that's required as well. They would attend all the public hearings as well, take minutes from the public hearing. I bring up an example. We have the assistant town clerk, Lauren. She is a town employee, and she's a recording secretary on several boards and commissions. Does a stellar job. I'm not sure if she is going to put in for it if we go down that road or not, but that's just an example of an employee or anybody else.
So Paul, that recording secretary would be a stipend position?
Yeah,
Or a
it's
volunteer
set,
position?
it's X dollars for the first hour and then a
Yeah, I
reduced
know it's a
amount
very
for
minimal
each
fee,
additional hour.
But we could
It's-
allow it to be a stipend position.
It
just
would
to
be
make sure.
yeah, it would be a stipend position, it would be.
And we leave that decision up to the commission.
Yeah,
Would we
if,
approve the-
I think in overall, it's selecting contingency, because we don't have a line item in the budget for recording secretary for charter revision. When we created the budget last year, we weren't thinking. If you all are good with, we can do the accounting practices in the back office, but if you're all good with using selectmen contingency, we can just fund it out of that. if they so choose to use a recording secretary.
So I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize a recording secretary to be present at the Charter Revision Commission meetings to record minutes as well as other filings that need to be done, and this to be funded from the Selectmen's contingency fund.
Second. If the committee requests.
At the pleasure of the commission.
At the pleasure of the committee.
Commission.
Commission.
Don't know why I do that. At the pleasure of the commission. Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion on it?
So the discussion I have is, when we say at the pleasure of this commission, it's possible they wouldn't want a recording secretary? Is that what we're saying?
One of their own members
Up
could
their
possibly
choice.
step up and say, I'm not chairman, but I'm more than willing to be secretary.
The last charter revision commission that was called in this town, the chairperson
That is-
actually took the job
Yeah.
of chairing and
That
doing
is
the
correct.
minutes.
Okay.
Herculean, my favorite new word of the night,
Apparently,
Herculean
yes.
effort by that individual, because the really
It was.
detailed notes, I mean, it's very easy to follow along. Again, I just wanted to put that on your radar in that, you know, asking
so
somebody to
we'll
chair it
take
and
that.
also to take minutes is a big effort.
I know even some of our commissions, they bring in a recording secretary. Others, they have one of the seated members. I know like Park and Recs uses one of their members to do the recording.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
So February. Heroic effort.
No,
Herculean.
Herculean, get it right.
Well, last month it was boiled pasta.
No, the pasta's been baked or
The
cooked.
pasta's already been boiled or something.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion, all in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Moving on to new business, 11, new business. Item A, 26-05, proposed line item transfers by the Director of Finance, Town Manager Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was hoping that our fire chief could be here tonight. Unfortunately, something had pulled him away. He was in earlier this year, fiscal year 26. We experienced an unpredicted massive amount of apparatus repairs causing the line item to be depleted quickly. In an effort to maintain our other equipment, we require transfers of funds, tires. New tires were placed on all apparatus as planned. We maintained a small amount of funds to accommodate repairs to tires if required. To pay per call based on the payouts of the first 6 months, we should have additional funds there. What we're just looking to do is our maintenance of equipment line is completely exhausted. If a piece of equipment goes down, we just want to be able to move quickly to get that fire apparatus back up in working condition. So $2,000 from two accounts going into the maintenance of equipment. It is transfer 2605, and it's the transfer request of fiscal year 2026-02. So you don't have to read
By
that.
recommendation of the town manager, I move the Board of Selectmen approve the above action steps 26-05 of budget transfer totaling $4,000.
Second.
There you go, thanks, Paul. Discussion.
Real quick, Paul.
Yep.
I know that led from a vendor
Yes.
that they had used in the past. Has that vendor said been replaced?
That said vendor has been replaced. If you remember back at that meeting, we are looking at other recourse. We're still not there yet. I'm
Right.
excited to update the board when we have that done.
I just want to note about that.
Yeah,
So
that
is
did-
that, there've been no action so
No
far?
action yet, but
Okay.
But we
You
have-
all know me by
We
now.
do have a replacement vendor taking care of the equipment.
yeah, we have a new vendor taking care of the equipment. And to put it bluntly, I want some of our money back.
All right, that's all I got.
That's not going to put pay per call in
No,
jeopardy.
no, it will not. Nope.
Okay, good.
All in favor? Unanimous. Item B, 26-06, proposed line item transfer by the Director of Finance, Town Manager Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we recently replaced the battery in the white Echo Sport, which is used majority of the current maintenance of vehicle funds. We now need to replace the gas strap in the green Jeep, as they call it, Boogermobile. I had asked that to be stripped from but that's how they identify the vehicle. And lastly, we need to do 2 oil changes before the end of the fiscal year. We do not expect any further expenses from the clothing allowance, so we want to move $550 from the clothing allowance line, which all contracts, everything has been spoken for, so that line item will not be touched again, and move it into the maintenance of vehicle line to get the gas trap and 2 oil changes.
By the recommendation of the town manager, I move the Board of Selectmen approve the above action steps 26-06, a budget transfer totaling $550
I second the
to the
booger.
Boogermobile.
They said you guys would appreciate that, that's why we left it in there.
That's why it's in the motion.
I would like to know the history of the Boogermobile and how it got that name, actually.
I
so-
can give you that after.
I'm not gonna.
Can't-
Thank you, because
I'll tell you that much.
I
I think it's
actually,
the color.
when this came and hit my desk, I actually stated, we need to remove Booger, and like, no, we can't, that's the name of this vehicle. So I didn't even wanna know the history, I shook my head and said, okay, we'll run with it, so.
That was worth the $55.
500.
500.
It's
You've
worth the
been reading too much tonight.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion? All in favor?
Boogers.
6.
Booger pass.
Item C, 26-07, consider and possibly act on the bid waiver for Open Gov.
So, I'll talk about bid waivers in general, because there's 2 items coming up on the agenda. Bid waivers come in when the town necessarily doesn't need to go out to bid. And this came up when I started looking at contracts for, the contracts that were expiring and looking to put them into next year's budget. When we went and looked at OpenGov, which really is the only software out there that we've really put the entire land use office in, they had come back with a 3-year proposal totaling $147,533.93. We felt that because it was over the bid threshold of roughly $12,000, and we're agreeing to a 3-year contract, that we wanted to loop in the Board of Selectmen into the process to say they are a current vendor with us. OpenGov does provide phenomenal online support and back office support for all of our land use stuff. We do want to keep with them because the process of getting all the information uploaded into OpenGov and switching to a potentially new vendor would just be cumbersome in time, that we were hoping we could get a bid waiver and just agree to a new 3-year contract with OpenGov, and you'll see the prices with that.
I move that the Board of Selectmen waive the town's standard bidding and procedure requirements in the best interest of the town and authorize the town manager to execute a 3-year continuation contract with OpenGov.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Troy. Any discussion?
The cost of this, Paul, I see each year it goes up somewhat. Where was it for fiscal year 2026?
It's in that budget binder.
Okay.
I'm usually very good with numbers, but there's so many numbers swirling in my
Probably
head.
a little bit lower than 2027.
I want to put it at roughly,
Is it a fixed,
it's a fixed line item every year.
no, is it a fixed increase that they give us every year? I'm not doing the math in my head here, but is
I
it?
believe it was a 3% increase each year going on. We did have several conversations with them. They were pretty firm on the number. I do want to bring up OpenGov. Public Works Director did engage in software. Failure to cancel would have locked us into an additional $78,000. We brought them in about 4 months after the fact, and they were very good partners with the town, and they allowed us to get out of the contract, no harm, no foul. They are a great partner with the town. I will get you that number because it's sitting in a budget document in my office.
I'm just curious if it was the same 3%.
I believe
Or
yeah.
if the new contract was giving us a different cost basis.
Roughly the same. And just so you know, we did hammer them. I did call other towns that use OpenGov. They were all at 3%, straight across the board, 3%. So not that we were higher than any other town, but everybody was getting a 3% increase on either 3-year contracts, but some that were looking at 1-year contracts were actually getting much higher than a 3% increase.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Item D, 26-08, consider possibly act on a bid waiver for Everbridge. Town Manager Harrington.
So this one's just above the bid waiver threshold. We're looking to do a 3-year contract. We did call Everbridge about the renewal. If we lock in for an additional 3 years, they would keep the rate flat of $5,459 for each fiscal year. I think we'll find that obviously Everbridge is a great way of communicating with our residents. This is a line item in the budget. Happily to report that if the board does agree to do a bid waiver, This line item will stay consistent for the next 3 years in our budget, and I think we'll all find that Everbridge, for what it does and the small amount of money that it costs, is well worth its weight in gold.
I move that the Board of Selectmen waive the town standard bidding and procedure requirements in the best interest of the town and authorize the town manager to execute a 3-year continuation contract with Everbridge.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Troy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Item E, 26-09, refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenue. Town Manager Harrington.
As you can see, totaling the amount of $1,304.82. A lot of them are certification of correction with one overpayment of $289.29.
I move the Board of Selectmen authorize the refunds recommended by the Collector of Revenue in the amount of $1,304.82.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Troy. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Item 12, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. And we have a speaker. Just make sure you put the microphone on, please.
Just curious to know when you'll have your next special meeting, like for 48 Bridge Street,
If you don't mind?
if you
I can
have an
answer.
idea?
March 17th, it was set at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. We have two things going on. In fact, the legal notices went out today. They'll be in the paper tomorrow or the next day. So on March 17th, we have 2 items on the special meeting that night. One of them being the referendum, or the town meeting for the referendum for the new roof, and also 48 Bridge
okay.
Street. So 7 PM start time.
So the roof is gonna be a separate referendum.
The roof will be, we're gonna adjourn the town meeting on March 17th to go to referendum for the roof.
Oh.
We're gonna talk about the roof that night, and we're also gonna talk about 48 Bridge Street. We just combined,
Are we voting on the roof that night?
nope, we're
Oh,
gonna do is we're gonna adjourn the meeting to referendum. And then we'll open up the polls on March 24th from 8 AM to 8 PM, voting here at Town Hall. For the roof. 48 Bridge will be decided at the 17th meeting, the
All right.
special town meeting.
Thank you.
You waited, you could have asked me.
Does this go off by itself?
No, you just hit the button again, and it's off.
Item 13, Selectmen's comments and reports.
Just really quick, I'd just like to throw it out there. Don't forget, the Winchester Soldier Monuments Commission, their winter lecture series is continuing from 10:30 to 12 at the Beardsley Library. The Great Tariff Train Wreck of 1878 will be discussed. That should be exciting.
I got one thing. I would like to task our humble first town manager here, Selectman town manager, to pick out 4 to 6 other properties and get working on those to be listed.
I think that needs to be done during regular order as an action item on the agenda. That's not something for comment, period.
He can look at projects
But you
for
can't
the town.
task
Yeah.
him to do something. That's something for the whole board to act on and has to be added to the agenda as an action item.
To just bring
I'll add it to next month's agenda.
There you go.
You can keep looking in the meantime.
I'll state that, I talked to Dave Soderana today. There are some interest in some properties, that I think are very ripe, that line up with the current property list that we have out there, that I was looking to actually put on, it must be in my head, in the March's meeting. It'll probably be March 16th, but there's a few properties that I wanna bring you all into executive session. We can talk about it, price, where you go from there. So, there's I think 3 or 4 properties, and a lot of it's coming from Public Works. We've noticed the maintenance of those properties, especially during the snowstorms, that our Public Works Director would like to offload those properties.
You think?
So it's coming.
So would we.
Other,
I'd just like to follow up on the conversations we had earlier. I understand we each have our caucuses, we each have our positions on things. I just think it would be better for our community if the discussions and decisions are being made here, not privately and before we all sit at this table to address items on the agenda. I think it damages any goal of transparency when things are, deals are made in back rooms and that exclude other members. I was very disappointed today. I didn't expect this today. And I was very disappointed that there was not a full discussion when we went through, because that's what I thought we were talking about, you know, originally, about going through and discussing each applicant's qualifications and why we felt individually they would be best on committee. And apparently you guys did that in a dark room, without any light or recording, without the community being able to see it and comment upon it. And that's not what we want to be. I didn't think that's what we wanted to be, and that's exactly what was just demonstrated today. And I really found it shameful. And you can justify it, but you know, it's always very clear that you guys coordinate who's going to make a motion, who's going to second a motion. You guys do a lot of that. It's very clear because it's so staged. But when decisions are going to be made, things are going to be deliberated, it should be done in an open setting in front of our community, in front of our electorate. And that's not what was done today on that commission, which is why I voted against a commission that I support. Because I don't like the process that was followed. That's all I have to say.
Any other board members? Just in closing for me, I mentioned at last meeting, elderly scams, telephone scams, they're still out there. One came to my house. Somebody was in a car accident, broke their nose, and when there was some pushback by the person who answered the phone, they were hung up on. So be vigilant in your phone calls. And if you didn't notice, I have fish on my tie tonight, Saturday, February 28th, another fishing derby, Highland Lake. Brings people into town to show off our beautiful natural resources.
And just for info, Dairy Queen closes in 30 minutes, so everyone.
We had a goal.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Good night, everybody.
Does that mean you're buying?
No, did I say that? I don't even need Dairy Queen.